Foreign aid is known as the funding the United States provides to other countries for purposes of relief and rehabilitation, for economic stabilization, or for mutual defense. It is given by the U.S. government and by private organizations. The United States' goal for foreign aid has three main purposes, which are humanitarian, political, and development. Humanitarian aid has to do with natural and man-made disasters and crises that get out of hand. An example in this case would be Hurricane Katrina. Political aid has to do with making peace with other countries. An example in this case would be the United States and Iraq. Development aid has to do with reducing poverty and encourage economic growth in low-income countries. An example in this case would be giving back to Africa under the circumstances they are in. The federal budget funds all U.S. international activities. The U.S. international activities consist of operating U.S. embassies and consulates throughout the world, providing military assistance to other countries, aiding developing nations, dispensing economic assistance to fledgling democracies, promoting U.S. exports, making U.S. payments to international organizations, and contributing to international peacekeeping efforts. According to the Department of Defense, $663 billion of foreign aid goes toward military spending, while only $30 billion goes to programs that assist the poor. Many Americans believe that 25% of the federal budget goes to foreign aid, but it really does not. U.S. foreign aid has had a big impact on health, food, democracy, and self-governance, education, economic growth, and financial independence, and sustainability and environment.
Everywhere we go, we see different people who have different cultures, backgrounds, religion. They all believe in their own stuff. They all think differently. Some may be taught differently than others. Some may be informed about what's going on in the world. Some may not. We're here to find out how many people actually know how much the U.S. spends on foreign aid. When watching these interviews, you notice how surprised the students are on how far they believe the U.S. spends percentage-wise on foreign aid.
How much would I spend?
Yeah, no, do you think the U.S. spends on foreign aid?
More than 500?
Like percentage-wise?
70-80%?
No, that's too much. It's one.
Really?
Yeah, it's a little. A lot of people think it's a lot. How much do you think the U.S. spends on foreign aid? How much do you think the U.S. spends on foreign aid?
Like more than 50%?
No, that's a lot. It's only 1%. Yeah.
The U.S. Department of State reported that 9,707 terrorist attacks occurred in 2013. The vast majority of these attacks occurred in underdeveloped nations. Weak government leads to terrorist groups to form. Most of the attacks were to send political messages to the governments because they believe that their government is unjust in some sort of way. These terrorist groups that form don't only pose a threat to their society, but to other countries as well. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, 805 million people are estimated to be undernourished. People that live in rural areas depend on agriculture as their main source of food. Having no alternatives to income, people often migrate to other countries looking for other jobs to fill. Mothers don't really have the necessary food intake during pregnancy, leading to children born underweight, already posing a barrier to their life. Children are living unhealthy lives from the start and are limited to advancing in their own communities. Education crisis amongst these developing nations. More than 72 million children of primary education age aren't in school. Most developing countries can't afford to even make schools. Teachers don't benefit from teaching, and children often drop out to help out their families develop. Without the basics of learning, kids are limited to advancing in their own communities, and therefore, the country is at stake.
Foreign aid is a term that is widely misunderstood by many. When people think about foreign aid, they think about charity for underdeveloped countries. There are many factors to blame for the misunderstanding of foreign aid, and the first factor to blame is myths. People think that the budget for foreign aid annually is 25%, but according to an article published by The Washington Post by Daily Mack in November 8, 2013, The reality is that the annual budget of foreign aid is less than 1%. The second myth is Americans do not support foreign aid, but Americans do support foreign aid. A survey shows that over 35% of Americans were in support of foreign aid when it was targeted to poverty and world hunger. The third myth is providing aid lets foreign governments off the hook, but that is not true. In fact, people that donate money for underdeveloped countries, they decide where the money goes to and put requirements and laws, so the government is not off the hook. And the fourth myth is foreign aid does not benefit Americans, but foreign aid does benefit Americans. It shows our pride and value for other countries than ourselves. It shows how we are the world leaders. The third factor to blame for the misunderstanding of foreign aid is the budget. People think that the annual budget for foreign aid is above 30%, but actually it's 1%. With 1%, U.S. is not able to solve a lot of world hunger and poverty and education crisis all over the world. So the budget is one big factor to blame. The president should make a proposal to Congress to increase the budget for 1%, above 1%.
According to the Global Issues, in 1970, the world's richest countries agreed to give 0.7% of their GNI, which is gross national income, as official international development aid annually. Since that time, despite billions given each year, rich nations have rarely met their actual promise target. For example, the U.S. is often the largest donor in dollars terms, but ranks amongst the lowest in the terms of meeting the stated 0.7 target. How come the U.S. is not actually giving their requirements? They promise other countries and other people, and we are ignoring that cry for help, and we are being selfish and only thinking about ourselves. We waste so much money on things that we really don't need each day. I mean, come on, who needs $200 shoes or $200 glasses? Why don't we give that money to a better cause? Even $10 or less could have a huge impact on countries, some who don't even have proper education systems. We waste so much money each day. I'm surprised at the fact on how much each person wastes each day. I mean, there's been research saying that we spend more money on candy and other items like soda, fast food, than we spend on others. So, a famous person once said, all men were created equal, so why are some being treated differently? Why are some having better educational systems? Why are some having better living conditions than others? Why don't we help? There could be much done. There are many solutions that we could do. For instance, the U.S. can create more government programs to help fund for foreign aid, and which would also create more jobs. That could help us in the long run as well. The U.S. could donate some used books to foreign countries in need. Some countries don't even have the proper educational system, like books, pencils, desks, or they just live on based on opinions of what the professors tell them. Professors may tell them, oh, this is what happened, so that's what they're going to believe. So their educational system is very poorly. Also, the U.S. should build more homes for those in need. Most people don't even have a roof over their head, so they must be going through terrible times, so why not?
Myths like this are why we cannot give more help. They must be forgotten. In order for these countries to develop, the U.S. needs to spend more federal budget to make life of these people easier. Without our help, this country would fail and million people would die. U.S. needs to support more for this country also. The U.S. needs to give more chances for developing countries and encourage them to develop themselves, not depend too much on U.S. foreign